My name is Knut Olav. I've been working in Statoil Fuel Retail, which is the gas stations under the Statoil brand in Scandinavia, Baltics, Poland and Russia. They're currently owned by an American company called Alman Couche-Tard, and we operate in the US under the name Circle K. We're actually now going to change that in Europe as well, so from 1st of May we're going to change the Circle K, and you will see that popping up in stations here in Sweden and in other countries from that time. Myself, I've been with the company for 2 years now. Been living a long life in procurement, but was then recruited here 2 years ago to actually go into the change that came up by moving out from an oil major and moving into being a more retail company and being more agile and flexible and making sure that we really had enough pressure doing in procurement work in a good way.
And you mentioned you have a different background as well. Can you elaborate on that? What have you been doing before?
Well, I've been working in procurement more or less since I graduated in '97. So it's a couple of years. Started off in the engineering part in the oil and gas industry. So I've been buying a lot of valves and pipes and everything for oil platforms in the North Sea. Then I moved into consultancy and was there for some years before I moved here to Stockholm and started working in Skandia, life insurance company. They built up their global presence in procurement. At the time they were a little bit more global than today. And after getting a lot of kids, I settled down with a job in Storebrand in Norway, which is the biggest Norwegian life insurance company, and build up a procurement department there. So a lot of procurement and also a lot about changes and building up new organizations, making sure that we are more professional in the procurement work that we are doing in those organizations.
And being more professional and getting a seat at the table and getting a bigger buy-in and so on is a common procurement aspiration, if you will. Can you share what have you seen in your occupation during the years? Have you seen a development of some sort?
I think when I started in procurement, and of course I was on lower level at that time as well, but it was much more transactional. It was very much about pulling the prices and getting the prices correct. What we see now is that procurement is much more a strategic role in the organization. You're much more on a high table, and you participate more in strategic discussions. I think that's very critical because your suppliers are the ones that will be able to drive your strategic goals in the future. And how you collaborate with your suppliers and decide to operate with your suppliers is really what will create value. And it's not just about buying standard equipment. Of course, standard equipment you will always want to buy, and you will always want to buy at best possible price. But in theory, you can now get a computer to search the internet and get those prices the best as possible. But what this really comes down to is how can we, together with our suppliers, make us both better and be even more cost efficient and be able to reach our customers even more. Working then in the retail industry is even more important there, because why should I buy a Coke better than someone else should buy a Coke? That's of course because I can create additional value to Coke. I can promote it differently, I can package it differently, and all of that is part of the strategic discussions we need to have with all the vendors to ensure that we actually create value for them and create value for us. The same when it comes to IT software. It's like buying Ariba. It's just not buying a tool for getting one transaction done. It's about how you really want to operate and how that can support us in Statoil being more efficient in the future and actually getting a better value. And at the end, it's all about getting that guy out on the gas station to sell more sausages, sell more gas, and how can I support him doing that more efficient and a better quality. And just to elaborate more on quality, which is of course an important aspect as well. If I sell you a sausage on the station, a real hot dog you can get here in Sweden, and you get sick after it, we have a tremendous problem. So I also need to have that trust with my suppliers. I need to have them qualifying and securing that I can trust their product. The same, we have a number of trucks, about 140 trucks driving around on the roads in Sweden and other countries every day. If there should happen something with some of those trucks, which we don't own ourselves, but our partners own, we will be in tremendous trouble. And of course, it could be a big nightmare for any environmental issues or anything. So that's something we really need to collaborate with our suppliers on, making sure we take that responsibility and making sure that we have suppliers that can take that responsibility and work with us on it.
And I guess you've already touched upon it, but you have a really big project, if you will, or strategy within SRF regarding your procurement processes. Can you say something about the business case that you had starting that project?
Yeah, when I joined the company 2 years ago, we were carved out from an oil major owned by the Norwegian government, a little bit bureaucratic. And we said that we really need to think differently. There was like procurement was more focusing on compliance and lawyers and legal stuff. We said no, we want to be a business partner. So the first year was there we really worked on being more a business partner, seeing the possibilities, seeing the goals of the business and how we can support them in making those decisions better. Then we said, like, as the next step, it's like, how can we secure that we get even better on doing this? Yes, we need to have the right tools in place. If we don't have the right tools in place, we will not be seen as professional towards the suppliers. We will not be able to transact as efficiently, and it will require too much labor actually doing those processes. So then we decided that we need to really go the full suite of source-to-pay solution. And we really did go out to the market and see what was our alternatives. And there's some alternatives out there, but we ended up saying that, well, Ariba is the best alternative for us. For others, it maybe could be different. That's not for me to tell. But that was for us the right solution. And it's really about making sure that we can cover all the steps, but that we also have control in the entire value chain. So what we so far has rolled out, we have rolled out the sourcing module, which really makes us able to be much more professional doing sourcing activities, to a much higher extent securing that we do the sourcing the right way. We have rolled out the contract module, which is critical, and I believe most organizations have some sort of control of their contracts, even though it's a file share or if it's in SharePoint or something. But really taking that to the next level, making sure that you can have the contract, but you can also link to the sourcing event you had, but you can also make sure that you are able to follow up towards the spend you have and the purchase orders and invoices that you're receiving. Then, just as I mentioned, like the security of our vendors are critical, and of course working with supplier performance management to secure that we can follow up the supplier, making sure they have the certificates in place, which is a part of that. Certificate management is a part of it. Also monitoring then on the KPIs, and we have seen a lot on the work on the KPIs the late years, and there's a lot of suppliers developing KPIs and working on them. The problem is that I have 3 suppliers delivering the same stuff, and they have 3 different portals and 800 different KPIs I have to monitor. And this is about getting control and be able to compare them. I need to build the KPIs in my system, doing it in one consistent way to actually be able to monitor it. So that's an important part of it. But then, of course, the last piece is the procure-to-pay part, where we really need to secure that we do buy the right stuff, we get the leverage of the volumes, and we also get an efficient process. Living here in Scandinavia, we are very much used to having the end users doing much more. Like all the employees in my company, when they buy a mobile phone, they're not used to go to someone and ask for it, go to IT or something. They can just click on the portal and order it themselves, just like going to Amazon.com. And when the invoice arrives, I also expect them to be able to manage it. And I think that's very important, to be able to get a tool that can support us in that value chain, but at the same time securing that we have the necessary controls. So we have the 4I principles on all purchase order and invoices. We have, of course, limited selection of goods. So if you want to buy a sausage grill, which I have at the gas station, you know this is alternatives. But I'm pretty sure that station manager is fully capable of knowing if you should have a sausage grill that is 40 centimeters or 60 centimeters, because that's about him measuring it, and he knows how much sausages he sells. So it's both having the opportunity to enable really the one furthest out in the line to actually do things themselves, but at the same time securing that to do it in the line of the corporation.
I mean, usually when you do a big change, it takes some working with change management. What are your experiences with that? Does people just jump on and move on, or have you put some effort into that?
I think it's actually a little bit of both, because on one hand we have very competent people, and those competent people know how to do things, and they used to go shopping Amazon.com and all those things. So of course in that sense they are able to do a lot. At the same time, any change to actually make it really work the right way, you need to train them. The problem is a little bit that a lot of them believe they can it and don't want to do the training or just skip the training. And to really be able to do those things the right way, I think it's important. And be able to motivate people to actually do the training. At the same time, not overdo it. So that's a fine balance we need to do. The next thing is that people are able to do everything this first time. It's like we had huge training in sourcing and contract management for all the professional strategic procurement people. And they learned a lot. And they were like clicking the demo system, they were doing everything. But when they come back to their desk the first time, they don't remember all of it. So yeah, I think it's important like to do the big training and do those training, but then you also need to do the repetitive things to fill them up. making sure that they are both supporting each other, but that you also have like Q&A sessions where they have the possibility to ask questions, where they have the possibility to look into the solution and learn a little bit step by step, because that's the only way you really are able to get smarter, because the first one was too overwhelming, but at the same time you also learned about the possibilities. So you learn what you could ask others questions about later, out from what you had learned was possible, even though you didn't manage to catch how to do it. So I think that's a fine balance. In one way you can never do enough, but at the other time you have to respect other people's time. And we're all living in a pressure world where you don't have too much time to do everything. So how can you balance that one out? I think is important.
And I imagine that you're not finished with your developments. Can you say something about what you will be working on in the upcoming years?
Well, now we have like the first models in place. We have a lot more to do, especially when it comes to supply performance management. We will be rolling out the P2P, hopefully successfully, and be able to have done all the training and everything right out to the station managers. But of course we will always continue to develop this. And I think it's two elements. One way we will be smarter, so we will learn what more we can do, making sure we both get working better with the tools, but also being smarter with how we work with the tools. But then, of course, one of the benefits being on a cloud solution is that we have a solution that as well develop. And of course, all that new functionality that will be added to the platform, we also need to make sure that we continuously work on how we should use them. Then, of course, having an entire organization that I have across 8 countries that spent most of the last year working on Ariba and will continue working very much on Ariba next year, it's like you also need to make sure you develop them in other dimensions. So of course, Ariba is an important tool for us, but it's just as well important how we actually do the negotiation ourselves when we are in the meeting with the suppliers. And for me and my team, we need to focus back on those partners, because we've forgotten that a little bit during this huge implementation that we now are going through. So that's important as well, but I actually think that also will strengthen how we use the system, because at the end it's a combination, and how those things can live together that is the critical part to being a leading procurement department.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, and good luck.
Thank you.